Welcome to Walking with Jesus Bible Study. We are going to be in the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 7, verse 29. Therefore, now let it please thee to bless the house of thy servant, that it may continue forever before thee. For thou, O Lord God, hast spoken it, and with thy blessing let the house of thy servant be blessed forever. And I'll repeat that. Therefore, now let it please thee to bless the house of thy servant, that it may continue forever before thee. For thou, O Lord God, hast spoken it, and with thy blessing let the house of thy servant be blessed forever. God had promised David that his house, his kingly line, would continue on forever. And through it was interrupted when Judah fell to Babylon in 586 BC. Jesus Christ came as the Messiah, Son of David, and in fullness, and will fulfill the promises that God had made to David. Throughout Isaiah, Jeremiah, all the old books, they all prophesied and spoke where God had said through his prophets that he will make a king that should rule. In fact, in Jeremiah specifically, he was telling Judea that they would now be taken into Babylon, and they would no longer, that he wouldn't even look at them, that he would know where to hear their cries, he won't even hear their fast, he won't even pay attention to nothing that they had to say, because they kept on being disobedient. But he did say in there, I don't know where exactly at, probably around chapter 19, somewhere around there, he said to them that he will one day make a king out of the tribe of Judah, and that he would rule over, and his name shall be called the righteous God. And I'm not saying that word for word, so I'm just trying to remember from where I read in it. So that's not his exact words, by the way. But the title will be of a righteous God. He was speaking, obviously of himself, letting people know that I will send a man who is going to be your God, because he is God. And that's why he will be called the righteous God, because God himself is righteous. He was letting everybody know just how much he was going to be sending himself to rule over the people. You see, back at that time, they didn't even have, where they were sitting there prophesying about this righteous king. But God was saying, he was letting everybody know that that's what he was going to do. That even when Jesus came and was preaching in the synagogues, and he was telling everybody, hey, didn't Isaiah, didn't Jeremiah, all those things that was prophesizing about me is coming true. And so even though they was even sitting there debating about him being a so-called prophet, he was saying, I am going to be king. But they didn't want to accept the fact that, let alone him being where they thought, which of course he was not, he was never once calling himself a prophet. They were saying that he might be a prophet. And the reason why the confusion was being said was because they didn't want to even say the word Messiah. They didn't want to give him any of that authority, because they knew that part of it was being true. And if he was the Messiah, that they was in deep trouble, because they knew they may have been putting out the law, but they was not keeping the law themselves. Deep side, they knew the trouble they was going to be in if that was the true. So as long as they just kept on trying to push it aside, so a lot of them was trying to discredit the fact about him being a Messiah and turn him into be a prophet, and then so that way they can call him a false prophet. But it was Jesus himself who wasn't even calling himself a prophet. He was calling himself, he would have his own kingdom, that he was here for his kingdom. To reassure them, to let them know, hey, I'm doing what Jeremiah had prophesied, where God himself had spoke to the prophet Jeremiah and saying, there shall be a king, and he shall be the righteous God. That shall be his name. And they didn't want that. That's why they put it on there to when they put King of the Jews. They most definitely did not want that on there, because of that being on there, we're saying that what he was saying was even more true, what was even being more prophesied, besides just being the Messiah. Where God himself spoke to the prophet saying, I would give you a king, one called the righteous God. So it goes into more details about him not just being the King of the Jews. And that's why still to this day you have people arguing, calling him, titling him as the prophet just so they can keep the prophet. Jesus was not a prophet. Moses was a prophet. Jeremiah was a prophet. Isaiah was a prophet. Those people were prophets. A lot of people are sitting there arguing, oh, well, you can't determine that the prophet and the Messiah is not the same. Yes, you can. The prophets was not God. God walked with the prophets. Jesus was God walking. That's the difference, and that's why you could definitely sit there and say that you cannot categorize Jesus as a prophet. They wanted it to be that way, and they still want to keep it that way, so that way they could turn him into fake and to be a liar and to be a false prophet. Because if he holds the title of the prophet, he can't hold the title of the Messiah. He can't hold the title of the righteous king that was to come. One that they would call a righteous God, said out of the mouths of the prophets. Just like they had paid the guards and the Jews to tell the story about him risen from the dead, that he was stolen. And they paid him off because they know that if they didn't do that, people would, the impact that it would have, because they would be held accountable for all the things that they have done against their God, against their king. So they have to keep it just as such to make it seem like, no, he did not rise from the dead. No, he was just a false prophet. He was a prophet who did not speak the truth and spoke blasphemy. That's why they went and kept him held in that category. But we all know he was not a prophet. He was the Messiah. He was God walking in the flesh. He was God walking. God wasn't walking with him. He was God. God walked with the other prophets. And that is the difference between, sitting there calling him Jesus, about saying Jesus was a prophet when he was not. And a lot of people to this day doesn't want to accept the fact. They know deep down inside their heart what is true and what is right. But just like the Pharisees, the reason why they want to live in that denial, because if they was to sit there and put the truth to be told, they could not accept the fact of what's going to happen to them, because they know they're not ready. They know they're going to have to pay for all the things that they've done. To accept the truth means to know that they are not ready. And that's exactly what was wrong with the Pharisees. They knew they was in trouble. They was living in denial. And that's why a lot of people nowadays are still living in denial, because they know the punishment that they're going to have to face for the things that they have said, for the things that they have done. They know that they are not ready. That's why they want to believe that the end of times is coming, because if it was true and he was coming tomorrow, they know where they would be going, because they are not ready. They're not right with God. Their relationship's not right. Don't let it be too late. Don't live in denial. Step up and own the truth. And the truth is, God is